Conference finals are in full swing. If there's a lesson to be learned, it's that the guard position is as crucial as it's ever been in NBA history. Can the Heat find a way to bolster the position to contend for a title? We'll answer that and look at what guards might be available for Miami on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat, whether you're tuning in on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day. For daily content on the Heat, click that subscribe button on YouTube. Make sure you are following us on your podcast app. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Have a great show for you today. We're doing another edition of our weekly playoff lessons, and where we look at the rest of the league and try to draw conclusions about what it means for the Heat and how they should approach this pivotal offseason. So I want to start, David, by taking a look at the four teams left in these playoffs. We haven't talked about the conference finals yet on the show. It's Knicks-Pacers, who are playing game one a couple hours after we are recording this. And then there's the Thunder and the Wolves. And you look at all four of those teams, and the thing that they all have in common is that they're all led by guards. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the Thunder, Anthony Edwards in the Timberwolves, Jalen Brunson in the Knicks, Tyrese Haliburton in the Pacers. So I guess maybe the first thing to discuss here is, do you think that this reflects a trend in the NBA? That the final four teams remaining are led by guards? Or do you think it's a coincidence? And do you think that the Heat need to consider a guard as their next superstar player because of it?
I tend to think that it's more of a coincidence than anything else. I know Oklahoma City, as good as they were in Game 7 versus Denver, had something swung the Nuggets' way, we wouldn't be having this conversation because that team is led by Nikola Jokic. And I think there are still enough teams out there with superstar players outside the guard position where you could say that there's nothing clearly established there. There's not enough data to show that, at least in my opinion, that the guard is the dominant position there. But I think it's crucial, and I think that's where the focus should be. I think for the Heat, that's where you're looking at league trends or however you want to define it and say the guard position needs to be significantly upgraded. And that's by every other team too. Like, I think you can look at any team and you say, you know what, you'd want to have a proper balance around there, and yet want to have clear great players or talented players at almost every position whenever possible. But in terms of having a guard, you at the very least have to have somebody that can take over games and bail you out of certain situations. And I think that's what these four teams remaining certainly have. And as good as Tyler Herro's been, well, maybe this is getting too into the conversation already. I'm not sure that's where Miami is quite yet, but I think that's certainly what I would say in terms of what the league, how it's trending and how the guard position has evolved over recent years.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of coincidence and it's a little bit of trend, right? I think, Jason Tatum goes down and the Celtics, the reigning champions, they're probably losing that series to the Knicks anyway. But to discount them as a true contender would still be wrong. And they're not led by a guard as good as Derek White might be and as helpful as Drew Holiday is. I mean, that's a forward-driven team, right? That's Jaylen Brown and that's Jason Tatum. To your point, the best player in the league is Nikola Jokic, right? And the Nuggets aren't not in the Western Conference Finals because of Jokic. They're not in the conference finals because he has no supporting cast.
Yeah.
But the second best player, or maybe second most important player on that team, is a guard in Jamal Murray. But yeah, I also think it is true to say that the guard position's having a moment right now in the NBA. We're going to have a team win a championship this season with a guard as its best player. And that's not something that has happened a lot lately. The last team that was led by a guard to win a championship was the 2022 Warriors. But before that, it had been a minute, right? I mean, even those 2017, 2018 Warriors, Kevin Durant was the finals MVP. He was the best player on those teams. And Steph Curry was obviously super important, so we can count them, maybe not, but whatever. You keep going back. The Spurs, that was a Tim Duncan team. Miami, Yeah, 2015. The 2015 Warriors were led by a guard. Yeah, obviously. The Heat, that was LeBron's team at that point. You can go Dallas in 2011. That was a Dirk team. The Lakers. I mean, that's really when you get back to the guards was Kobe Bryant, and that was really like that true kind of guard team. And in 2006, obviously Dwayne Wade with the Heat, but it had been a lot of Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Giannis, Jokic. You think about the past MVP winners: Giannis, Jokic, Embiid. Obviously, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, though, it was announced is going to win MVP for this season. So it feels like maybe is this a blip, or is this maybe a trend? Is this turning more in the guards' way? And I actually think we might be entering a moment where the guard position is even more important than it ever has been.
I think that's where we're at right now. It doesn't necessarily have to be the most dominant position, but it has to be dominant. And maybe that's oversimplifying things, but I also believe that's where you need that balance. You can't just have, even look at Denver, right? You can't just have a great center. You have to have a great guard. And I think Jamal Murray, despite the resume, the all-star level resume, he's been there. And he's shown specifically in the playoffs and in the finals that he could have those big moments. And that's what the kind of balance is. You have to have, if the guard is not your best player, he has to be pretty damn close. And it has to be in a very good high-level complementary player. Again, assuming, and maybe again, this is the problem with Miami's roster construction is the lack of the superstar. You have to have a clear superstar, but you need that guard to be able to stretch the floor, to be able to make plays for others, to be able to have the gravity that can draw a defense in to make things easier for teammates. Miami hasn't had that in a long time.
Yeah. And when you think about where the league is going, just with the rules and the trends and everything like that, it starts to make sense. What are the two most important things, arguably, on offense in the NBA right now? 3-point shooting and ball control.
Yep.
You can't waste possessions. You can't turn the ball over. And you got to make threes. And those are two things typically associated with the guard position, right? Ball control, point guards, right? They're running the ship. And then the 3-point shooting, easiest player and the players who tend to take the most threes are obviously guards. So I think that's part of it too. I found these stats, David. I was looking up dunks and threes, which does a really nice job of putting together this like tell-all stat. It's an estimated plus minus. They have a total estimated plus minus, and then they break it out for offensive plus minus and defensive plus minus. So it's a nice like catch-all stat for total player impact. 7 of the top 15 players in their total estimated plus minus, 7 of those top 15 players are guards, 4 are forwards, and 4 are centers. That's pretty remarkable considering that these PER and total weighted stats tend to favor things like rebounding and things like that guards obviously don't do a lot of. So the fact that the guards are ranking so high in this catch-all stat, I think is kind of, it reflects what's important in the league today when you talk about ball control, not turning the ball over, 3-pointers, driving, all that kind of stuff. So 7 of the top 15 players are guards in total EPM. And then if you just filter it out to the offensive EPM, 10 of the top 12 players in offensive impact are guards. 10 of the top 12. The only other 2, I bet you can guess them, Jokic and Giannis. So everybody else that's making this top 12 type of impact on their offense is a guard. And that to me is pretty interesting because I don't know that there's another time in NBA history where you could look at it quite like that.
No. I think that was one of the criticisms in NBA history. And this might be going way back, but at the same time, it was a league dominated by big men. And the idea was they were just a bunch of giants out there. And
big men win championships and guards sell shoes, right? That was the thing forever.
And, I think that shifted eventually with Magic Johnson at 6'9". So,
right,
as big a guard as you ever had, and yet, obviously Kareem on that team. But then you had Larry Bird, Dr. J, and then of course evolving into Isaiah Thomas and Michael Jordan dominating throughout the whole 90s. But I mean, even during that era, that was a fantastic era for centers. You had Hakeem Olajuwon, Patrick Ewing, David Robinson, etc. So I mean, there have been a lot of great bigs that were still there and carrying water for the league and still very much the face of the league in many ways. And Jordan is Jordan. He's one of one.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting. I don't know. My tendency is still to think it's not necessarily.
I want to stay there though, because Jordan maybe ushered in the era of guards. So maybe I might have been wrong when I said it's never been. There was one era where it was Jordan in the mid to late 90s, and then Kobe comes in, and then you had Kobe, and then I would even argue Dwayne Wade, and then Allen Iverson all around that time too with Kobe.
Yeah.
That was probably, and then Iverson brought that 76ers team to an NBA Finals. So it's not like he was. Jason Kidd with New Jersey was huge for that team too. I mean, there was a period where guards. That was probably the last time where it felt like a guards league.
Especially during the aughts when it was Shaquille O'Neal and at its very peak, and there were guys that were kind of tweeners, and then you're seeing that evolution with Tim Duncan and KG, where they were more like skilled. Really big skilled forwards that could play the center.
They snatched it back, right? Because then you had the Spurs winning championships, and then the Celtics in 2008 with Kevin Garnett after they made the Garnett deal. Like the big men snatched it back.
But to your point though, like you had Shaq, and then it was Shaq, and then it was kind of everybody else at that point. And you could go to the finals with like Todd McCullough as your center position, or Matt Geiger as your center. That's not going to really get you in today's game. You can't have that kind of. You got really good players, and then, what's this guy doing here? He probably shouldn't be on an NBA roster, and he's starting guarding Shaquille O'Neal. You're walking 6 fouls, and that's how it played out.
Well, you already mentioned his name, Tyler Herro. We're going to address the obvious question that listeners might be asking. What about Tyler Herro? We'll talk about whether he can take another leap and become the guard that the Heat need after this.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs, they're in full swing. And every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. And FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Which players are showing up in the biggest moments? Well, you get the conference finals. A pretty dominant performance from OKC there. I think Gilgeous-Alexander certainly deserves a lot of merit, but we're recording this the night before Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Will it be Tyrese Halliburton or Jalen Brunson? My money's on Brunson. I think he has a pretty dominant series, and certainly we'll see how he steps up in clutch situations as he had all season. But if you want to get a $200 bonus in bets and add to the excitement on your first $5 bet, gets you in on all the action right now. So if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head over to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. We'll be right back.
Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. The obvious question is Tyler Herro. Can he take another leap and become that guard that the Heat need so that they could be part of this conversation? Herro already took the major leap last year. He was A, more available, and B, way better at basketball. First All-Star, three-point shooting champion in the All-Star weekend. The leap is undeniable. I guess the question then is, we saw the leap, and we still don't know. We still know that he's not at that tier of the guys that we were talking about, Brunson, right. Shea, Halliburton, like these guys.
Right.
Is there another leap in him? And if there is, what do you think that looks like?
I think there is. I don't know. I don't know what it looks like, because I think even all of those guards, like Halliburton and Brunson specifically, they're not exactly known for their defense. Mm-hmm. But it just seems like they're able to take over games in a way that I don't know that Tyler has. Like he's had moments. Maybe he is up there. Like even in the course of this conversation and thinking about it right now, like what really is it that separates Tyler from being recognized for having had those moments? Hasn't he had strings of games where he's had like really dominant performances? Hasn't he scored bunches of points in waning moments of games to help Miami either come back from a deficit or maybe pull out a victory? Like, We've seen this from Tyler, and yet there's the perception that he's just not as good as those guards. And I don't know. I struggle to think. I mean, Brunson and Halliburton both are pretty poor defenders. Isn't that what the biggest knock on Tyler Herro is? But maybe it's the playmaking then that
That's what it
separates
is.
them in terms of how you view them.
They have an extra superpower that Herro doesn't, right? Halliburton has the playmaking. And by the way, Halliburton, you remember in that final game against the Bucks in the first round, he gets the ball on Giannis in isolation and blows by Giannis. Halliburton's just thought about as like this kind of slinky bodied kind of like
wonky shot.
Yeah. But dude has a quick first step and can get by you when he really wants to. And his drive and isolation numbers are off the charts in this postseason. And it's a big reason why he's the motor of that Pacers offense, is that he could do that thing and he can kind of hit that gear and get to that level. Tyler Herro doesn't have that. The Jalen Brunson thing, the footwork is just world class right now. He's just doing things with his strength, with his low center of gravity, all that stuff. His clutch gene is tops in the NBA. I mean, not even comparing to just Tyler Herro, for everybody. And then the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander piece of this, I mean, forget about it. So, and Anthony Edwards, right, is just a freak top 1% in the league athlete. Herro doesn't have those superpowers. If there was, so the playmaking part, I don't know we'll ever get there for Tyler because he doesn't really have the size nor the strength to do the things that those guys can do from a playmaking perspective. But I do think he could potentially be a better three-point shooter than all of them. And I'm wondering if that's where he unlocks it. It's leaning even further into that. He took 8.7 three-point attempts per game this past season. I don't know that there's two better three-point shooters in the league than Tyler Herro. Like Steph is clearly the best.
Yeah, that's it.
Steph's clearly the best. I don't know that there's somebody that you would say, yeah, for sure, a better three-point shooter than Tyler Herro. For sure. Anthony... What?
Payne Pritchard.
Edwards obviously had the stats and the numbers and the pull-up shooting and stuff like that, so maybe you could consider him, but I still would put Herro above all of these other guys. Why isn't he taking 12 to 14 three-point attempts per game? That's where I would go with Tyler.
He just doesn't have the space.
He doesn't have the space, and he has to be on the ball all the time. I mean, that's the obvious answer, yeah.
Yeah, so it's... even looking at this, like in terms of where, if you're looking at which of these two players, neither, and I mean Bam and Tyler Herro, because those are the pillars of your team right now as it's currently constructed. But if you're looking at where to build around, and obviously you need to know that you have to acquire a superstar first and foremost. But if you're forced to move one of the two, which player would you say has the higher ceiling? In terms of like the impact and on a complementary level, because that's really what they both are. They're not superstars. I don't think either of them ever will be, and that's fine.
Well, it depends on who you're getting back, right? It's. I mean, if you're getting another star guard back, then it would make sense to move Herro out.
No, in a back again. We're talking about Jalen Brunson shines, but that's because he's got a lot of great players. I mean, he's again Karl Anthony Towns, Anunoby, etc. There's a lot there to make his case look good. If he was just doing what he did and he didn't have the rest of those complementary players, we wouldn't be talking about it. Same thing for Halliburton. Again, he didn't win Sacramento, rookie season, whatever. But the point being, I think like you can't win alone in this league, and I think that's pretty obvious. But if you're going to look at Bam or Tyler and have to view them from the Miami Heat front office perspective and say, this is the guy that we want to complement X superstar that we're able to acquire, I think let's assume that the superstar is already locked in, but you could get the best of those two players. Which of the two do you think has the higher ceiling, Bam or Tyler? Like you would say,
I think Bam is a better amplifier for a star player because of the things that he does on the margins that star players don't always do.
That's it. So you're kind of forced to consider the possibility of trading Tyler for as good as he is and has been.
Yeah.
And I think as good as I think he'll even continue to get better. If you want any kind of potential superstar to join this team, Tyler's probably the first option that you'd look at in terms of moving him to try and get that next level player that can help Miami even further. And his value might be at its highest.
Yes.
I don't know that it'll ever get higher.
Yeah, I mean, he's coming off the All-Star season. He's really sort of resuscitated his value across the league. At the same time, he is an elite scoring guard. I think he is an
No
elite
doubt.
scorer, but he's not an elite shot creator. He doesn't create advantages the same way that these top guards create advantages. But if you were to play alongside somebody like that, to your point, I think you would see his value actually increase as opposed to decrease, right?
It's a catch-22 here. That you have to trade him to get the superstar, but if you did get the superstar and had him on the roster, you'd see how much better he was, or I was a complimentary player. That's a great point.
Or maybe you don't have to trade him to get the superstar. I mean, who knows? We have no idea what's going to happen here. But so considering that we have decided that the guard is a really important position, that Tyler Herro isn't quite at that point yet, the next obvious part of this conversation, David, we got names.
There we go.
Targets, trade targets next. All right, so let's take a look at some of the guards who are at least rumored to be available. 2 names jump out. I've got a bunch of names here, but 2 names jump out right away.
All right.
Trae Young, Jamal Murray. Now, I don't know how much time we want to spend on these 2 guys because there are no actual reports that these guys are even available. There's actually reporting to the contrary, right? Trae Young, the reporting by Mark Stein recently is that the Hawks were more motivated to move Trae Young last summer than they are to move him this summer. And they don't even have a general manager yet. So everything sort of in Atlanta is up in the air. Is this new GM coming in going to want to shake up the roster so much that they want to trade Trae Young? Maybe, yeah. Maybe this new GM wants the roster to reflect something different. Or maybe this new GM comes in and says, let me see what we got here with Trae Young and take a beat on it. I don't know that Trae Young gets moved this summer. And then ditto for John Morant. The Grizzlies GM has publicly come out, denied any trade rumors pretty emphatically. I don't know that means anything. His name does keep popping up when you talk to people, but I don't know if that's just hey, they might trade John Morant, or hey, I think they're going to trade John Morant. It's kind of hard to figure out what the difference is. But between those 2 guys, we're going to get to the rest of the names on this list, but those are the 2 most talented players on this list.
Yeah. I don't know if I necessarily buy the report on Young. I mean, who would you even talk to about that? Like, that's the whole point. Like, you're going to get that kind of information from the front office that isn't in place. So once they get a general manager, he could come in there and be like, well, I'm glad that you think so.
That's a really good point.
I don't really want Trae Young anywhere near my team, and I'm going to trade him right away. So it's still kind of open-ended there. But yeah, I find it harder to see that the Atlanta Hawks would keep a player like Young because I think we're already pretty well established in where he is in his career, and they might be going in the opposite direction. I mean, like right now, it's kind of their youth that's carrying them a little bit, or at least buoying them to a certain degree. And that being the case, you might not get his value at anywhere closer to what it is right now. You might see it actually depreciate over time because he's not going to change. Like, he's already reached his ceiling, I think. And there's certainly nowhere else for him to go. He's probably one of the, if not the best playmakers in the NBA. And he's also known for being a quality shooter, and he can get to the line, etc. I mean, he's not going to get any better than what he is right now. So if you're looking for a clean slate, this is your best opportunity.
So
Morant, I think there's another level for him to reach.
If we take that as truth, that this is just who Trae Young is he at that level of these guards that we're talking about, or not?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Fair. So go ahead with John Morant.
With all his
I
works defensively, because again, you just mentioned it. Like, not only is an elite scorer, but he also has that extra superpower. He's an elite playmaker. He might be better as a playmaker than he. That's primarily how people recognize. And yeah, you can have those defensive inefficiencies, and those are baked in. You're not going to be able to replace or kind of fix those. You can't tweak them. The guy weighs 150 pounds. Like, you're not going to be able to guard anything in this league, and that's, you kind of accept that because, well, there's a possibility of getting 28 and 11 every night from him. If that's the case, you kind of go, okay, yeah, I know you're going to suck defensively, but that's fine. We'll live with it.
Yeah, I mean, the Hawks were still able to go out there and put a semi-decent defense around him, despite it, because they had the personnel, right? I'm looking up where they finished in defensive rating. They were 18th. So,
not great.
Not great. So I don't know.
It was a lot of fake stats from Tyson Daniels, right? I mean, I know you're not his biggest fan.
John Morant obviously has the superstar athleticism, incredible shot maker. He's nails on his floater, dunks everything, has had big moments in big games. I think the off the court issues are something worth considering, might be a little overstated at this point. Because the biggest thing with John Morant is his health issues. It's the availability. That's what is his durability overall. That's the biggest thing. And if you're the Heat, I think if you're looking for a star, you want your star player potentially to be a guard, whatever, scores a lot of points, can play make, create advantages. John Morant can do all these things. But that third kind of pillar that you're looking for in your star player is availability, because Miami had just dealt for years with a star player who wasn't available. And I don't think they have an appetite to be dealing with that again. Correct. And John Morant is perennially unavailable. That's sort of his whole thing. So I have questions about Morant, even though I know Heat fans want Morant. We get comments every single day. And the idea of Morant is fantastic. When he's on the court, he is absolutely an elite difference maker. We're not forgetting that. But do you have any faith that he could stay healthy is the biggest question for any front office potentially trading for Morant.
Yeah, no, it's just given that blend of physicality and aggression with which he plays the game, and whatever physical issues. But you're fragile until you're not. And I think if anything, you could look internally and say, you know what, Tyler kind of disproved that notion. Last summer you're being called fragile by Pat Riley. This summer, guess what? You reached a career high and lots of different departments there. And I think he was shown that he was durable, and I think maybe you could make the same case for Morant too. And that being the case, I mean, isn't his talent something that's tantalizing enough to kind of want to take that chance? I know, yes, as you might feel 100%. Like you get burnt. Yeah,
100%. He's that talented. It's the sort of risk you have to make in order to get a talent like that. Those guys don't just. If John Morant was more available, he wouldn't, or more available to the Grizzlies wouldn't be making him potentially available, right? Like they wouldn't. So that's the part there. I've got a few other names. You can just
let's do it.
We don't have to talk. Just stop me when one of them I suppose is interesting.
Right.
LaMelo Ball, we talked about him. I don't know. No indication that Charlotte's actually going to make him available. Austin Reeves. The Lakers are going to have to pay him after the season. They're going to have to offer him an extension. And with Luka and LeBron, they might not be able to afford him. There's some scuttle that they could look to potentially trade him and upgrade a spot. I don't know that Miami has the thing that they want. But maybe there's a three-way trade or something there. But like Reeves and Herro in the backcourt, well, I don't know. But
I don't know.
Yeah, Drew Holiday. The Celtics are probably going to shop him. Awesome guard, two-way player. Heat kicked the tires on him a couple years ago. Not exactly what we're talking about though here. No. Anthony Simons falls short, I think, of the billing, but he's rumored to be available. Can I throw another name at you? Last one here. What if the Heat called the Nuggets about Jamal Murray?
I was just going to say that. Because that's what would Denver want from Miami? They wouldn't want.
So before we even get to that, why would the Nuggets even be willing to trade Jamal Murray? And I think the number one thing is they have to create a way to add depth to that roster. And every Nuggets fan is throwing Michael Porter Jr. into every trade rumor, every trade machine.
Yeah,
I don't know who's taking Michael Porter Jr. coming off of a shoulder injury, $40 million a year.
No,
that's a tough contract to move. And even if you're moving it, you're probably not getting the stuff back that you're looking for, right?
Right.
You can't move Aaron
Gordon. You might have to
include
stuff important in order to take on MPJ's contract, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And they don't have any stuff to include.
Right.
Aaron Gordon is too important. I don't think you can move him, right?
No.
Then your defense just falls apart. So then you look at Jamal Murray, and as great as that two-man game is between Jokic and Murray, I don't know if you feel this way, David.
Yeah.
It felt less important to Denver's success than ever this year. Jokic was bringing the ball up. Not to say it wasn't important, but it was less important as it had been. Even in the 2023 finals run, when Jamal Murray was excellent in the finals.
Yeah.
It's been a couple of off playoffs for him. And now that Jokic basically brings the ball up and is shooting threes at a high volume, it just doesn't, it's not as important. It feels like Murray needs Jokic more than Jokic needs Murray now, which wasn't always the case.
100%. 100%. Like, I mean, he's been marginalized to a certain degree.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a great complimentary player. It's great to have him out there, et cetera. But come on, that's again, it doesn't matter so much who's complimenting that superstar when you already have that superstar, and Murray ain't that superstar. Could he
So
be that in Miami? I don't know. I don't think so either, though.
That's the thing is like, do you think you can get more out of Jamal Murray? Because we've seen it. We've seen it at a high level, but he's also never been an all-star. A couple of years lost to injury there that matter, but in a Western Conference that was loaded, stacked with guards, so it was always a little bit more competitive than it was in the East. But it's never been an all-star. He's 3 years older than Tyler Herro. Has the injury history that's even more severe than Herro's. I don't know. It's interesting. He's also reached heights. He's got a strength about his game that Herro doesn't have.
Yes.
He's a better playmaker overall.
Yes.
It's interesting.
Given his age and injury history, you'd still kind of say his ceiling is higher than Tyler's, though, right? Not just based on what he's done in the past, but even what he'll do in the future.
That's I don't know.
It's not edging him by a long amount, but he gets like a slight nudge more than Tyler in terms of what Tyler's capable of. I mean, and again, not a knock on Tyler. I think it's a fair assessment. Tyler is a very good player who can probably get a little bit better, and I think he's still going to be just a smidge less than the kind of player that Murray, if Murray was unlocked, could be.
So if you're Denver, would you trade Murray for Herro? There's about a $15 million difference in salary. Could you throw in maybe, could you get, I don't know, like a Duncan Robinson or a Kyle Anderson or something, an extra depth, Haywood Highsmith, like an extra depth piece coming back? That to me would be, and like probably a pick or something. Maybe. I don't even know. Like Herro's coming off of an all-star season. Murray's not. I really don't know what the difference in their trade value would be at this point. But that would be, if I'm Denver, that would be what I'm asking for, is can I just turn Jamal Murray into a slightly diminished Jamal Murray? And could you imagine Tyler Herro running off of the Jokic handoffs and screens? Come on.
Yeah, I don't know.
I feel like Denver would almost not lose anything, except they would lose the chemistry, which is a big thing. I don't mean to diminish it, but yeah, I mean, come on.
Tyler's smart, though. Like, I mean, his IQ out there is, I think, pretty evident. I know it's become very fashionable to hate on Tyler, but I think Denver would love that trade more than anything. They can add depth and get a younger version of Murray and Herro. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, please don't take our.
And then Herro's due for the extension, but once he's traded, he's not going to have that ability. First of all, I don't even know if he's traded it. I think the extension isn't worth quite as much as it would be, because obviously the Heat drafted Tyler Herro, so there's different rules there. But once he's traded, like if you're the Denver, you could say, yeah, maybe Miami would have given you $50 million a year, but you're new here. We're not giving you that money, and you could probably stand on that.
Yeah.
Where if you're Denver, you just had to give Jamal Murray that huge extension, and you might have a little bit of buyer's remorse on that.
Yeah.
So it might be there might be some potential for Denver to alleviate some cap issues going forward. And if you're Miami, then you're building around Jamal Murray and Bam Adebayo as your top two. I agree with you. I think that sounds way better for Denver than it does Miami. I like Jamal Murray a lot, and he used to be a playoff riser. I mean, 40-point games in the playoffs, but that was a while ago. It was before the big injury. It was before whatever weird 2-year slump that he's in the middle of.
Yeah.
It's too risky for me if I'm the Heat. It's not enough of an upgrade. I'd almost rather risk it with John Morant, considering the availability issues.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just, I mean, again, I think you take a flyer on that, knowing that, I mean, that's going for broke, but if you get it, you're going to win a lot bigger and a lot more. I mean, I like Murray too. I just don't think he's such a significant upgrade over Tyler, given everything else there. That's not the move. And I think that would hurt Miami far down the road too, especially in terms of, I mean, you're giving up a younger player that could reach newer heights, better heights. So
with
that's
established, in the team, and then obviously, and then you're bringing in Jamal Murray on this contract where Tyler Herro doesn't have this contract yet, even, and it kind of screws up your cap sheet a little bit. I mean, that would be the move. It would be Bam and Jamal Murray, and then those would be your two star players. There would be no wiggle room, the way that the Heat have wiggle room right now. The other option, and we won't spend a long time on this, is just you look at Jalen Brunson, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Tyrese Halliburton, they were not considered star players when they were traded or were acquired by their current teams. So the idea would be find the next Brunson, the next SGA, the next Halliburton, which is obviously much more difficult. Do the Heat need to draft a guard at 20? Could they go find somebody on another roster that can somehow, pop into a superstar player? These are all big ifs, and I don't think the Knicks, the Thunder, or the Pacers quite anticipated getting this from these guys. So
it could be Tyler. You ever consider that?
Be Tyler. 100. That's what it could be. So I think we just spent a whole 30 minutes talking ourselves into just Tyler Herro's the guy, which I'm sure will.
But I'm saying, he could be unlocked if he were to join another team. So Miami. Look, Brunson was great in Dallas. They had Luka. They didn't need Brunson as much, and then he comes to New York, and it's like, MVP candidate, kind of, sort of.
Yeah, I guess.
MVP candidate.
Did we? Yeah, I mean, he was behind Luka. SGA was just traded by the Clippers, and then Halliburton was playing behind De'Aaron Fox. Herro's not playing behind anybody. So, but he might have another leap in him, and that might be what the Heat have to hope for at this point, because I don't know that that guard is out there, or they have the ability to acquire that superstar guard that's not on their roster. But that'll wrap it up for us today. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NBA Big Board Show. NBA draft expert Rafael Barlow reacts to every workout, interview, and rumor leading up to the NBA draft. Find Locked On NBA Big Board on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts.